Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
How do you combine travel with raising money? Find out when I speak to Richard Lupton from Global Adventure Challenges, which is coming up on this edition of the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Hello and welcome to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Hello and welcome to this week's travel show. This week my guest is Richard Lupton from Global Adventure Challenges. They're a company that help people to raise money for good causes by doing, let's put it simply, some exercise. And this exercise could be carried out in the UK or around the world. Perhaps over the year or so you've had people come up to you with sponsorship forms about hiking across the desert or seeing the Great Wall of China. Well, this is the sort of thing that they do, and we're going to find out more about the particular company and how fundraising has moved on from the facing the stocks and there's a wet sponge in your face to these more physical activities. We find out that they're a great way of raising money that which may not necessarily have been raised in the first place, and they give somebody a great sense of achievement once they've finished the achievement of completing the challenge and of raising all that money. So let's start off with my chat with Richard, and we'll find out how things have moved on from what used to be much simpler ways of raising money when I was a lot younger. Richard, when I think about fundraising way back when I was a lot younger, it was about sitting in a bar full of baked beans or doing a sponsored walk. But it's now more about doing challenges such as cycling around Vietnam. How did this come about?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a sea change in people's attitudes towards fitness and also people's attitudes towards giving. I think people want to be seen as doing something pretty extraordinary and really pushing themselves for the donations that they're going to receive from their supporters. So certainly I think over the last, it's been an exponential growth since the year 2000 when we first started as a company, but certainly over the last 2, 3, 4 years it's been huge. I started at Global, I think it was about 5, 6 years ago now, and I was the 5th member of staff, and we now employ 20 people at our Chester offices, and it's all down to the interest in this type of event and people wanting to put their body and their mind on the line to raise much needed funds for charities across the UK. I think it goes side by side with the traditional fundraising means. So people might still sit in a bathtub full of baked beans to raise the money to take part in one of these challenges, but it motivates people to raise an awful lot more, and it's certainly something that our charity partners appreciate in that respect.
I'm sure the question on most people's minds when they see something like this, doesn't the fact that a kind of a holiday's been bolted on means there's going to be less money raised?
It's often a question from people who haven't taken part in one of our challenges. I'll be honest with you, John. I did the Sahara trek last year, so I trekked through the Sahara Desert, and at no point would you be able to call that a holiday by any stretch of the imagination. You're in amazing surroundings. It's a phenomenal place to be, and it's one of the things that'll stay with me for life. But it's grueling. We do put people through their paces. We're not Global Adventure Easy, we're Global Adventure Challenges, and we do make sure that people are exerting themselves and are really, putting themselves through a challenge and getting that reward at the end of it of thinking, yeah, I've really put myself out, I've trained hard, I've fundraised a massive amount, and I've achieved my goal of getting to the end of this challenge. I think as well there's from the other side of it, from the charity's perspective, I think what some charities struggle with is donor acquisition, getting more people to raise funds for their charity. And with that in mind, I mean, you've probably got two different types of people who take part in our challenges and raise funds for charities. You get people who are already supporters of a charity and want to do something extraordinary for that charity, or you get someone who's seen our website, wants to do something extraordinary and really wouldn't have a chance to do it in any other way apart from raising a massive amount for a charity. So in that respect, people will, these are fundraisers that this charity wouldn't necessarily have had before. Would Joe Bloggs off the street be raising £3,000 for his local hospice were it not for the fact that he'd be going to trek the Inca Trail at the end of it? So the charities do find it a really, really important way of getting people on board and getting people involved with their cause. And I was just chatting to a lady yesterday from a charity who'd mentioned that they'd run a Peru challenge, I think it's 8 years ago now, and the group was still in contact, and there was 25 participants on it. The group was still in contact, and each one of them was still raising funds for that hospice to this day. So it can be seen that the person is getting a benefit from it, and certainly they are doing something completely life-changing. But what they're also doing is changing the lives of other people through the funds that they raise, not only for that challenge, but also through future fundraising. So it does continue after the event as well.
So the challenge means that there's going to be money raised for a charity that may not have had the money in the first place. But when you're looking at a challenge, are there limits involved for the amount of money raised before it's viable to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a corporate member of the Institute of Fundraising. What that means for us is that we abide by their rules, and what they set out are clear guidelines as to what targets people need to reach before, to take part in one of these events, and also the kind of legal side of fundraising, and they're kind of an overarching body that gives out best practice and advises charities on what is the best way to go about things. And as a corporate member, we, in the charity sector, we abide by their guidelines. And what they insist on is that no less than 50% of the money raised goes on costs. So if you're sponsoring someone who's taking part in one of our challenges, then you can be assured that at least half of that money that you're giving to them is actually going to the cause. And prior to the challenge taking place, this is where it all gets a bit technical, but prior to the challenge taking place, we need to ensure that these people have raised the money beforehand. So if they haven't, unfortunately, it may be the case that they're not able to take part in that challenge, because we need to ensure that the charity is getting the best deal out of it. We can't have people, say, raising £1,700 for a challenge that will cost £1,500 because the charity's only getting £200 out of it, and it's not a viable percentage. So we're very conscious of our responsibilities to the charity sector and to our charity partners, and that's how we move forward with it. So I appreciate that there is that argument out there that some money is going to cost, but as I say, we stick by all the guidelines in the sector and make sure we're compliant with all of those.
So it sounds to me that the more complication involved the challenge, the more money the charity is going to get.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised actually. I mean, we've got a really wide range of challenges. So obviously the headliner challenges that we've got are things like climbing Kilimanjaro and trekking the Great Wall of China and cycling through Vietnam. We do other challenges as well. So we do a lot of UK-based mass participation treks, and I mean there was a couple of ladies who took part in a trek in the Brecon Beacons earlier on this year. I think they raised somewhere in the region of about £15,000 when their minimum sponsorship target was 300. And that can be quite typical, dependent on that person's story, the link with the charity, and how much they actually go out and attack the fundraising and go for it. So those are minimum figures. The ones that you'd see on our website are minimum figures that people have to raise in order to take part in the challenges. But more often than not, once people get into fundraising, get their story across and the story of their charity, they raise way in excess of those figures. So it's it's certainly they do tend to raise quite a lot for the charity. It's an area that charities are quite keen on expanding because you may get someone raising that money for the minimum sponsorship. As I say, that's fantastic. It covers the costs, and it they get the same again as a bonus. But if they raise in excess, all of that money goes to the charity. Our costs stay the same, and then obviously in years to come, it may be the case that they continue raising funds for that charity as well.
Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock. Coming up, we've got Eric and Ernie. Join me here on Seclo Sounds.
In your smile.
It's from 1975, Eric and Ernie were four...
Gary, it's not Eric and Ernie, it's Earl and Ernie, the Cape Brothers, Union Men.
Oh, I see. Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock.
Earl and Ernie.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Later in the show, I'll be playing an interview that was recorded by one of my fellow shows on Seclo Sounds, Harry and Edna. They recorded an interview to help promote English Heritage History Live, which is an annual event held in Northamptonshire. So later on the show, you better hear somebody else's way of doing interviews and to find out a little bit more about this event. But at the moment, I'm speaking to Richard from Global Adventure Challenges, and we're going to move on to what may be coming into some of your minds when you think about extreme challenges: health and safety. Some of these challenges can be quite involved, but is there a problem with people trying to sort them out themselves, try and run it without using professionals? Is there a health and safety risk?
It depends really. I mean, I think it's completely up to people what they want to do. I mean, take our coast to coast cycle ride, for example. It's on a route in the north of England, and if you wanted to do that as, get a few friends together and cycle that route, it's possibly something that you can do. The benefit of using someone like ourselves is that we offer all of the support for that challenge, so all the logistical support, and for want of a better phrase, you are very much mollycoddled on our challenges. So you're arriving at your hotel in the evening, your bags are waiting for you, you're not having to worry about carting those from hotel to hotel. On a bike ride like that, you've got support vehicles, everybody's expedition first aid trained, we've got mechanics in there, so if anything goes wrong with your bike, we can sort that out. And obviously as experts in the field, we leave nothing to chance, whereas if you've not done something like that before, you might come across something halfway through the challenge and think, right, that's our challenge over, if you like. So it's certain things like that, and certainly when it comes to the overseas side of things, it's very difficult to put one of these challenges together. I mean, we use local operators with a vast amount of local knowledge. So with a lot of these challenges, you are really off the beaten track, and taking part in one of our events is one of the best ways of seeing these areas. So the Vietnam to Cambodia challenge, for example. The locals, you're like a local celebrity when you cycle through, simply because the only time that these local people see Westerners is when one of our bike rides comes through. Mm-hmm. So you really are kind of delving into that local knowledge and getting quite a unique trip because of it. If you planned it yourself, you'd probably be going, through general roads that may or may not be may or may not be safe, and it's tapping into that knowledge and also the support that you get through an organisation such as ours.
So an organisation like yours will help plan and have all backups and everything in need, what you may need. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's everything is catered for you. So what we try and do is take away any of the stress that you'd normally get with a challenge, setting up a challenge of your own, if you like. So, as I say, all you have to do is the challenge itself. So if you're doing a trekking challenge, you'll get there, all of your bags are ported or taken from hotel to hotel. Your food and drinks catered for throughout the challenge. You've got support, in some cases doctors and medical support on some of the more extreme events. So really, all you've got to do is trek, and all you've got to do is worry about the task in hand of getting through these 300 miles on a bike or up the mountain. So that's what we offer, really.
As anybody who would see my bank statement can verify, I'm not much of a financial expert. So do you also help out with tax things as well? Help raise as much money from other sources as possible?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to fundraising, what we try and do is our obligation is to put on the best event possible. If we put on a phenomenal event, people come on it, they have the time of their lives, and they really feel like they've achieved something, then fantastic. And that's our side of things. And we offer logistical information in the lead up to an event. We give people a communications plan when they sign up to one of our challenges, and we kind of drip feed them information, things about visas, flights, and everything leading up to a challenge. So that's our side of things. When it comes to the actual fundraising side, what we try and do is leave that to the charity. So when someone signs up, we let the charity know that they're looking to raise funds for them. And then the charity will be in touch with that participant to create that bond between charity and supporter. Because if the charity does a good job and really helps people along with their fundraising, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully that fundraiser will keep that bond with the charity. And that's what they like to get out of it. And certainly from the charity perspective, things like gift aid and other kind of regulations, if you like, and benefits from fundraising, they're able to pass on to the participants and hopefully maximise their fundraising efforts.
Okay, I'm not asking you to name names or anything, but you said charities are very keen for this sort of fundraising. But are there any that prefer people don't do challenges to raise money?
Not really, no. There are a couple of charities out there who would prefer, and very kind of blue chip, if you like. And when I say a couple, I do only mean about two larger charities who prefer, because of the administration of an event and the support and kind of hand-holding that you need to give to someone who's taking part in a challenge, they prefer just to send out a fundraising pack and say, go and raise your money. So in those cases, what they prefer is people to self-fund their own participation in a challenge. It's an option for people to take, and some people feel more comfortable going out and asking for funds, knowing that all the costs have been met by themselves. And that's absolutely fine. We offer self-funding and minimum sponsorship for all of our challenges. So there are a couple, and as I say, it is only one or two charities that prefer people to take that option. But certainly, to my knowledge, there's no charities out there who say, I don't want people raising funds through challenges. It's kind of a well-worn route to getting new donors and getting important funds.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org.
This is Seclo Sounds. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for 1 hour in the company of Harry and Edna on the wireless, exploring all aspects of the vintage scene and playing tip-top gramophone tunes. Harry and Edna on the wireless, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on seclosounds.org. Jolly good.
My name's Teresa Kelleher. Join me on Seclo Sounds every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for my show Inspired by Jazz. Each week I'll take you on a journey as I feature the music, the maestros and the melodies. That's Inspired by Jazz with me, Teresa, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. I'm speaking to Richard from Global Adventure Challenges this week on the Travel Show. We're talking about combining challenges and fundraising. Now, these challenges could be based in the UK or could be overseas, but they all have the same objective, and that's to raise as much money as possible for the chosen charity. And as we already heard, that it could be money that may not have been raised already because it took this challenge, the goal of hitting this challenge, to make somebody want to raise the money. So we're going to find out a little bit more about that now. Do you happen to have how much an average per person is raised for doing one of your challenges?
It's a very difficult one because not all charities share their information with us. Generally, we find out how much people have raised if they share their own story with us after an event, and some people are quite eager to do that. So it's a difficult one. I mean, certainly if people are taking part in one of these challenges under that minimum sponsorship option, they are going to at least raise that minimum sponsorship. So it's the cost of the challenge, and then the same again as a net donation for the charity. I know from experience that when people go out and take part in these challenges, and from taking part in challenges myself and chatting to people and finding out their stories, that people raise way in excess of that. But I mean, certainly everybody needs to hit that target, but what people raise over and above, it's just kind of anecdotal, if you like.
Okay. Before we move on to your company in particular, just one more question about participants in these. I mean, somebody like me, I have to have a break after I've turned the page in the newspaper. Whose responsibility is it to check that somebody's physically capable of actually doing the challenge?
Well, to be honest, with challenges, obviously there's varying degrees of challenge difficulty, and we've always got to keep that in mind when assessing people's fitness. Now, when someone signs up to a challenge, what we ask them to do is fill out a medical questionnaire and be completely open and candid about their medical history. If there's anything on that medical questionnaire that we think may be a barrier to their participation in the challenge, what we ask is that they have their participation signed off by their GP. If the GP is not willing to do that, we do actually work with a medical consultancy firm as well, and they can assess that person's medical history and see whether they're going to be able to take part. On certain challenges as well, there's medical checks that go on throughout the event. In our high altitude challenges, for example, we will keep on testing people's blood pressures. The ground handlers that we work with out in Nepal and say out in Tanzania for the Kilimanjaro challenge are fine-tuned to notice the differences in people caused by altitude. So we're obviously it's a reputational business, and we can't have people, really suffering on our challenges, and it's something that we're absolutely adamant that we avoid. So yeah, we assess everybody at that registration stage, but then also on the event, as I say, everybody's expedition first aid trained, and with each of our overseas challenges, we also send a UK-based challenge leader out with those challenges as well, just to create that bond between ground handler and participant. And obviously they have details of everybody's medical history, so if there is anything on there, if they see any signs, then obviously we can advise them on how to deal with it.
Okay. We've kind of glossed over who you are, but let's get talking about your particular company. When did Global Adventure Challenges start, and why?
Well, we started in the year 2000. We were born out of another company. We were actually based in Chester, and I actually worked for that company back in the year 2000. I've actually rejoined Global Adventure Challenges in its new itineration at a later date. And essentially, the company before was it was an online, a telephone fundraising company. One of our directors, who had a real interest and a history in the charity sector, went on one of the first charity challenges. I think it was a Macmillan challenge. On coming back from that challenge, he formulated the idea of Global Adventure Challenges, and the whole ethos was that people wanted to take part in these challenges, but they could only support these big blue chip charities. They could only support these charities that had the ability to pull in 30, 40 participants to put on an overseas trek. So what the directors at the time decided was that they put together these challenge dates and promote these challenge dates out to different charities across the UK for them to promote without obligation and without having to guarantee that they're going to get places on these events, promote them out and see if they can get people on board. And that's when the Open Challenge was born, essentially. So the first challenge was a trip to Borneo. It was a multi-activity challenge, so it included a trek up Mount Kinabalu, a bike ride, and then whitewater rafting at the end. So it was quite an attractive trip, and it sold out really, really quickly. And from that point, the directors knew that they had a decent proposition. So that was our first trip, and we're now running 60 open challenges next year as things stand at the moment. We possibly, that expands as trips fills, and we also run bespoke challenges for that certain challenges ask us to put on as well. So it's an ever increasing roster. There's an ever increasing demand for these types of events, and yeah, it's going well at the moment. Put it that way. Yeah.
Do you still offer that first challenge, the trip to Borneo? Does that still exist?
I don't, unfortunately, no. I mean, it was being in the charity sector. You've always got to look at the viability of costs and being able to offer these events out at a decent cost, and ensuring that at the end of it there's a decent charity return, if you like. Unfortunately, Borneo, with the flights and the ground operation out there, it kind of priced itself out of the market. So it was only a couple of years ago that we actually stopped doing the Borneo challenge. But watch this space. I'm sure it may come back into existence soon again. It's a pretty cyclical business, so I'm sure it'll be back soon.
Maybe for a special anniversary event. You never know.
Absolutely. I like it.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show.
This is Seclo Sounds, your community radio station. If you'd like to volunteer some of your time and skills with Seclo Sounds, send an email to volunteers@seclosounds.org and let us know how you would like to be involved. MK Flyers Online, the fast and simple way to find any kind of business or service locally. Find us at mkflyersonline.co.uk or download the MK Flyers mobile app from your app store. MK Flyers Online proudly supports Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
The John Guinn Travel Show. Checking it out before you check in on seclosounds.org. If you've been on one of these extreme challenges, adventure challenges, to raise money for your chosen charity, please share your experience at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. If you don't mind sharing how much money you raised too, that'd be really interesting, as long as any pictures you have from the event. It may push one or two of us off our armchair and up into doing something. You never know. Something that's important to me, even though I'm in the travel trade, when you think about some of the damage the travel does to the environment, is responsible travel. And I was keen to find out how much went back to the local communities when these events were being ran. So I asked Richard to find out. We've touched on about people doing these challenges and raising money, but you're travelling overseas. Doesn't it raise an unnecessarily large carbon footprint to raise the money?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we tend to use are scheduled flights. So we book places on flights that are going anyway. When it comes to responsible tourism, what we tend to use are ground handlers based in the locality of the destination. So when it comes to that side of things, we always try and put money back into the local economy. We sign up only using ground handlers that sign up to employee care schemes. So certainly when you've got porters in Nepal and in Tanzania for the Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp challenges, there's been stories throughout the years of porters not getting their fair whack of pay and being mistreated. We always use, as I say, ground handlers that sign up to these agreements that fair pay is going to their employees, and it's certainly something that we're very strict on as a company. So yeah, we always try and put money back into those local economies when we get our challenges out there, and certainly the tourism that it brings to these areas and the tales that people tell when they get back to the UK will hopefully drive more people getting out there.
I'm happy to hear that you're using locals, because with certain travel brands now going more and more all-inclusive, a holidaymaker won't meet anybody, will they? They'll get off the plane, they get to the hotel, and then they go back again. So,
yeah, it's one thing about these, and I mentioned it earlier about kind of being off the beaten track, and you really are immersed in these in the culture of the countries that you visit, and you're really encouraged to do that. And I think it's an ideal opportunity with the challenges that we offer because of that hand holding that we give. Really, you've always got at every moment throughout this challenge, you've always got a Global Adventure Challenges leader there who knows the country, who knows the ground operator, who has cultural information and knows the country, and it's fantastic. I mean, it was my first trip out to Morocco when I did the Sahara Challenge last year. We visited a local Berber school. We visited one of the tents of the Tuaregs, the nomadic people of Morocco, and you're very much given that cultural experience as much as a challenge. So, and that's fed into by the teams that we have on the ground, but more so by that Global Adventure Challenges leader. Their job is to cater for every need of the group, foster a team atmosphere, but also to enrich the experience and really offer that cultural experience out there. So yeah, it differs massively. I mean, I went on a package holiday to the Dominican Republic a while back, and it was before I started working here and before I started, kind of travelling as such. I don't think I'd have the problem anymore, but you're in a compound pretty much.
Yeah.
You were kept away from local people, and when you went out of that compound, because all you're surrounded by is Westerners and people serving you, if you like. When you got out of that into the hustle and bustle, it was quite overwhelming, and you didn't necessarily feel safe when probably you were, but you had that anxiety that you didn't know where you were, you didn't know whether you were going to get mugged or anything like that. So you were always kind of moving back to that kind of resort. Whereas I think with the challenges that we offer, we just try and get you out there, get you immersed, and get you feeling comfortable with your surroundings, and get you speaking to local people. Because more often than not, I mean, as I say, you're like a celebrity. Certainly when you're on the Great Wall of China, if it's a bank holiday in China, you've got people coming from right across China to trek the Great Wall. That these people have never seen a Westerner before. So it's but as I say, it's all part of the challenge, and it's all part of the experience, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I can remember some of my travel experiences I never would have had if I'd have stayed in the hotel. It does seem a waste of your time away just to sit there by the pool.
It does, and I look back at my own travel experiences, and I think, blimey, now I'm in the industry, and now I know, I've got that confidence to get out there and explore and speak to people, and it just enriches your experience just having that confidence. But it doesn't come naturally to people, and that's what we try and bring out.
You said you've got, I think you said 60 challenges on your books, 60 different ones. What if somebody has an idea you don't cover? Can you help them to put that together?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, more often than not, that come from the charity. I mean, when it comes to individuals, because there's an awful lot of work that goes on in the background when it comes to recce's, risk assessments, and making sure that the challenge is up to the standard that we expect at Global Adventure Challenges. There is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to put a challenge like that together. We do offer bespoke challenges for certain charities. So a charity might come to us and say, right, I fancy doing a trek in this around Argentina, and it's something that we don't necessarily offer as an off-the-shelf product. We can certainly look into the viability of it, let them know exactly what it's going to cost beforehand, and run recce's, and as I say, send our challenge leaders out there to scout out the challenge, and take it from there. There may be some upfront costs for the charity to do that, but certainly on the other side of it, they're getting quite a unique trip. So yeah, we're always open to ideas. When it comes to individuals asking, it becomes a little bit more difficult because we work on a group booking basis with the airlines, and obviously we work on a certain number of people taking part in each challenge. So if you dip beneath those numbers, it can become really prohibitively expensive. So certainly, yeah, I mean, we're always open to new ideas. The world seems to have become a small place over the last few years as we're putting more and more events on. So yeah, it's certainly always something that we'll look at, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure it's up to standard.
Happy Radio.
Hi, this is Russell Hearn. Join me Fridays at 12 for a little pick-me-up. I'll be playing the music that stirs those warm memories and takes you to a special time and place. And Millie's here with her choice of fun apps for your phone too. So for a lighter look at life and some songs you'll never forget, tune in to seclosounds.org for some happy radio.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. In a while I'll be playing that interview from the Harry and Edna show, publicising the historical event in Northamptonshire later on in July. But now we're coming to the end of my chat with Richard from Global Adventure Challenges. If you listen to the show often enough, you know that I mention consumer protection an awful lot. It's very important to me. It's the way that I came into the travel industry, having that drummed into me about how to protect the consumer's money. And each week or so, I always do my best to make sure that you understand fully how your money can be protected when you go away. So, of course, I needed to know that when it comes to raising money as well. So I'll start off by asking Richard about how Global Adventure Challenges protects people's money. There's a lot of money floating around because of the fundraising and everything, but what about consumer protection? You're doing flights, you're doing accommodation. Are you ATOL registered? Do you comply with package tour regulations?
Yes, on both counts. So we are ATOL registered, and yeah, we comply to all of those regulations. So yeah, we do offer that. I mean, you know, we as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing more and more people taking up challenges and going out and challenging themselves on these types of trips, but yeah, we everybody's completely protected.
You're going off to some far off locations. What happens if there's some political upheaval in the area? What will happen to the trip?
Well, we always take advice from the FCO. So I mean, it has happened in the past, certainly in Tanzania and in Nepal, that there has been unrest and political upheaval, as you mentioned. Obviously, in those cases, we'll get most, if not all, of the money back from the airline. And because we've got such long-standing relationships with our ground handlers out there, more often than not, we'll be able to get the participants or charities money back on those on the ground handling costs as well. So in those cases, in the past, we've been able to reschedule those challenges to a later date, and it's meant little or no cost to the participant.
You said earlier, right at the very beginning, that these aren't holidays, they're physical, they're demanding, but can somebody bolt a holiday on the end just to recover before they fly back?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's something that we get asked quite a lot. I mean, we run a couple of trips out in the USA, so we do a Grand Canyon challenge and a Death Valley bike ride, which I'm sure you'd be interested in, John. But yeah, it's both are phenomenal trips. Both end in Las Vegas. So more often than not, we get an awful lot of requests for people to stay an extra couple of days with those. I mean, we are in the lap of the airlines, as I mentioned earlier. We work on a group booking basis, so the airlines will allow us to deviate the return flight for a certain percentage of that group. So what we ask is that if people do want to tag a few days on to the end of their trip, if they let us know in advance, it is on a first come first served basis, and we do our best to accommodate any extensions. So I mean, on a couple of trips we can organise, you know, actual say in Tanzania we can organise safaris and let people know of organised trips as well. But more often than not, people just want to have a little bit of time out there to explore, and that's something we can do and just allow them to organise the rest of their trip.
I'm just thinking about a challenge for myself, being nice to cyclists for a week. That'd be a tough one for me, that really would.
Come on, John, we'll get you on it. We've got a fantastic Tour de France challenge next year. You'd love it. It's just being in the midst of 400 cyclists cycling to Paris.
Oh.
Can't think of anything better.
No, I couldn't do it. I'd have to say sorry to the charity. You're not getting any money. I just can't do this one.
We'll keep you on trekking, or perhaps whitewater rafting.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be a lot better. I checked out on your website that you're a member of the Institute of Fundraising. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, what we try and do is I mean, our bread and butter and our responsibilities to our charities to offer fantastic challenges that inspire people to take part, raise money for their causes. But we've got to make sure that we're compliant with all of the rules and regulations in the industry, make sure that our charity partners are getting bang for buck, make sure that, people are, raising the necessary funds before they take part in a challenge. And what the Institute of Fundraising do for us is give us that clear set of guidelines, and being a member of the Institute of Fundraising and being able to promote that fact just gives people that little bit of reassurance that, we're not going to have people raise, I'm not going to give charities a £100 net donation from a challenge that costs £2,000. Mm-hmm. It's about giving charities a fair amount of money, and also giving us a fair, set of guidelines for us to work with them.
You said that the challenges are cyclical and there's some come and go, but what's been the most popular one since day one?
Most popular challenge? We've they do ebb and flow, they do ebb and flow. I mean, there's the classic challenges that everybody's heard of. So your Great Wall of China, massive, absolutely massive year on year. Peru, absolutely huge. Kilimanjaro, the Everest Base Camp Challenge. Those are the real mainstays of the charity challenge market, and I'm sure there will be for a long time to come. So I'd say out of all of them, if you're looking over the period of time that we've been running, those challenges have probably been running the longest as well. So we're going to have had an awful lot of people on those. But certainly of late, I mean, things like Vietnam to Cambodia bike ride has been absolutely massive for us. It's 300 miles through two beautiful countries, and it just seems to have caught the imagination. I think we've been running that for about 6 or 7 years now, and it just builds year on year on year. So things like that. The Sahara Challenge is incredibly popular, and and they keep on growing. As I say, it's cyclical. We had a year about 4 or 5 years ago where no one wanted to take part in the Great Wall of China. We've always filled trips year after year after year. And then the next year, absolutely huge. Every trip booked out completely. So it is cyclical. But yeah, it tends to be the more traditional ones, and then we just grow the newer, more extreme challenges on the side of them.
What's the new extreme challenge for 2015?
Well, we've got a couple. I mean, one that's doing incredibly well at the moment is we've got a bike ride through Costa Rica. So it's a Costa Rica coast-to-coast bike ride. And if anyone knows the country, it's not an easy task to cycle. There's lots of obstacles in the way of cycling from coast to coast in Costa Rica. So that's doing incredibly well at the moment. It's the ultimate cycling challenge. There's river crossings. There's you're camping in the middle of rainforest. It's just a huge challenge. It's one of our challenge leaders mentioned that it's a bit like doing Kilimanjaro on a bicycle. So that's massive for us at the moment for people who are really wanting to push themselves. We've also got a cause-related challenge as well that's going to be taking place in November next year, which actually it's called Uniting Bike Against Cancer. And the whole ethos behind it is that people can cycle through Cuba and raise money for a cancer charity that's close to their heart or their local hospice. And it's a fantastic itinerary. It's a bit of a new one for us, and so far the response has been absolutely stunning on it. So it takes in Havana, the Bay of Pigs, and it's just a lovely way of seeing the country. So plenty of cycles and mojitos aplenty. So it's a fantastic challenge.
Yeah, Cuba's one of my favourite countries, but you're going to spoil it now by putting loads of cyclists on it.
Absolutely.
So how can we find out more about Global Adventure Challenges?
Well, we're quite easy to find. It's www.globaladventurechallenges.com. So if people want to find out more about the trips that we offer and how much they cost, feel free to hit the website. From there's links to our Twitter account and also our Facebook account as well, where you can see loads more pictures of people taking part in these fantastic events. So, or alternatively, feel free to call me in the office. All the contact details are on the website.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Thanks for your time.
Super. Cheers, John. Thank you.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Once again, the website for Richard and his company is www.globaladventurechallenges.com. There's some loads of great ideas on there. One that takes my fancy is the Husky Trail. I like husky dogs. I like the cold. What more is there to like? I'll have to see if I can sort myself out and go on one of those and raise money for a charity. Earlier in the show, I said I'll be playing an interview from Harry and Edna, another show on Seclo Sounds. They were publicising an event in Northamptonshire, and for those of you who are not familiar with Harry and Edna, well, you should be. I've played their jingle enough times. They're a radio show which is slightly different, let's put it that way. They're looking back to the 1930s, a lot of vintage stuff. And if you look at the picture, they dress vintage too. Well, I had a selection of interviews to play from this event, and I chose one about World War I aircraft because, as you know, I've already featured the RAF Museum on my show a couple of times, and it's 100 years since the start of the First World War. So it seemed a fit way to publicise the event, and I'll give you more idea about the event after the interview.
Abs, you're appearing at History Live this year. Can you tell our listeners what you're bringing something really special and unique to the event this year? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that will be?
Sure. Well, obviously this is the 100th anniversary of World War I, and as a special construction for English heritage, myself and my colleagues in my workshop, we're a professional making company, we've been building a full-size First World War fighter aircraft, and when I say this to people, they say, well, that sounds huge. It's not huge, but it's a big construction, and it's made so it comes apart, and the public will get a real flavour of what these things were like and how frail they really were when those young men flew in them and diced with death 16,000 feet above the earth.
How do you go about recreating one of those? I mean, do you literally have to look at the blueprints for all the design and the construction of the originals, or is it something that you've been and researched and looked at yourself? And sometimes people can look at an object and think, oh, I understand how that's put together.
Okay, it's a twofold, really. Obviously, there are real ones. There's a real one where I'm standing at Rest Park about 10 miles away. And the Shuttleworth collection have a flyer. Peter Jackson's aviation company, Peter Jackson, the filmmaker who made Lord of the Rings, he has a great interest in World War I aircraft, and in New Zealand they build these aircraft from scratch, everything, engines, the lot, and they are absolutely magnificent. We couldn't go to that level, so what I did was go to another company who restore Hawker Hurricanes, who luckily had one of these original aircraft in pieces, and they were incredibly helpful, and for a day I just sat with them and said, so how does that bit fit to that bit? Now, very quickly I learned that to do it the way they did it was a very difficult process and would have cost way beyond the budgets English Heritage could afford. So in the end, myself and my colleagues, took a modern approach in construction using wood and modern composite glues and so on and so forth. But we built something which I have to say looks absolutely remarkable. It's 27 feet wide and 20 feet long, and I've concentrated on all the what I call the fiddly bits, so the cockpit and things like that, and it really does look like a real one inside.
Was it difficult to construct from sort of the viewpoint that do we still have the tools that they had in those days? Do we still have the sort of manufacturing processes? Did you have to incorporate any of those to achieve a certain part, or could you use all of sort of modern technology?
Well, to a certain extent, obviously, their ones weren't made to come apart, whereas our one has to come to an event in a low loader or a trailer, come apart, and then be performed, and then taken apart again and taken away to another store. Whereas their ones, once they were rigged like a ship, with tensioned wire, they stayed like that. But one thing we did have to do was look at the construction of the real ones, and very, very quickly we realised to use what are called turnbuckles, which you get on sort of modern fencing, which are like little screw threads that tighten the wire up. Well, they had a much more advanced version of that. But as I saw at Hawker Restorations, who built this fantastic Hawker Hurricanes and had the one that we went to look at. As they said, you won't be able to afford to do it the way they did it. So we had to start using flat wood construction. We started to look to achieve the effect without using the methods they used. Because these things were incredibly frail, and without being too rude, a lot of modern day public are much heavier than a man wearing flying clothing was in 1917. So essentially we chose a structure which we knew could support certainly the weight of people, if not actors and reenactors and so forth. So we have beefed it up. It weighs a lot more than an original one did.
What about the materials for it? Were you able to source?
Well, the real aircraft, we're representing an aircraft called an SE-5A, which was designed in 1916, 1917, certainly was flying by 1917. The real one has a sort of a linen cover. Now, they shrank their linen onto their structures, and we didn't want to go down that route because, to be honest, it's an incredibly expensive route to take to do it the right way. And again, we've looked at Peter Jackson's people in New Zealand and seen the way they did it. So very quickly we realised that actually if we used an upholstery grade staple which won't rust, then we could staple that into the ash construction of the wings and use a quite heavy grade calico. And once we worked that out, amazingly just a normal available floor varnish, an acrylic floor varnish, seemed to do the job of cellulose dope. One of the most difficult things was getting the colour right, because aircraft in 1917, when they left the factory, were a particular colour called PC-10, and the government specified what colour they were. As soon as PC-10 got out to France and got into the field, it went a kind of dirty brown colour. So from being a dark goldy green colour, it very quickly weathered. And I work a lot at the Imperial War Museum, and their PC-10 is a kind of brown colour. So I decided that we were going to do the factory finish. So I've looked into squadrons.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on setclosesounds.org.
But actually, I think now I've made the decision we're going to represent an aircraft of a particular squadron, but we are going to fictionalise the actual aircraft, so it's not one aircraft in particular. So it's just going to give the flavour of the period. Delivered from the factory to pilots who flew them out to a dump at St Omer, where all aircraft arrived in France, and then from St Omer they were taken and moved by the respective pilots who would deliver them to the squadrons, and then those pilots took part in that squadron. So you could be a young man, 18 years old, straight out from training, doing 10 or 12 hours solo in Norfolk in comparatively simple conditions. You would be then sent to the depot in England, pick up your aircraft, deliver it to St Omer, and then from St Omer, where you would be refueled, you would then fly it to your squadron. And you could be thrown into combat straight away. And we do realise now that some of those young men, like Daniel Day-Lewis, the actor's father, he was a pilot in World War I, as was Baron Lucas, who lived here at Rest Park. They were going into action against people like the Red Baron with virtually no combat experience at all. So they were relying on young men of 18, 19 who were their flight leaders, who had been around for a year, and those are the people they were turning to for experience. So yeah, we're representing an aircraft as it would have been seen in France, much to the chagrin of my friend who I'm working with, who keeps on seeing these gloriously multicoloured night fighters which were used to protect Britain against Zeppelins and German bombers. He's going, I want to do that one. We're not doing one with bright red stripes on the wings. I want to do that one with the diamonds on it. We're not doing that one. We're doing a brown and green one.
Did it sort of really bring home a sense of how frail and vulnerable these pilots were when you had constructed this aircraft? Did you kind of think, goodness, I wouldn't want to get in that and then go up against the Red Baron?
Every day we look at our construction, which is a lot harder and heavier than their construction. You marvel at the fact that these young men were issued without parachutes because they were scared that the government or the powers that be were scared these young men might jump out of perfectly serviceable aircraft and be scared, basically, so they never gave them parachutes. And there's no room to wear a parachute of their style in these aircraft. And you look at them and you think all they have between a German bullet and them is canvas or linen between them and almost certain death. And without a parachute, of course, that it wasn't for nothing that the pilots referred to aircraft they shot at as flamers, because if you're firing incendiary bullets and you hit their fuel tank, they are going to catch fire. And if you're at 16,000 feet, that's a long way to fall while you're on fire without a parachute. And there are some amazing stories of young men. One young man who, from 56 Squadron, who was dropping some bombs from his aircraft, like a ground attack role, and one of the bombs went off. It blew his tail off, but not all of it. He managed to fly along, and then he heard a terrible clunk, and his entire undercarriage had fallen away. He got the aircraft down, but then for all of these amazing stories of people, an incredible survival, there are countless stories of young men who just failed to come back, and they're all 20, 22 years old, and you look at these things and think, how on earth did they ever have the nerve to go up in them? And I hope our construction will give people a flavour of that, and we're looking forward to showing the visitors and showing them the show we have, which isn't just about pilots, it's about ground crew, and it's about the people in Britain who were being bombed for the first time. So we're not just a thing to gawp at and take photographs of, we are a physical show as well, where people can come and learn as well and interact with myself and the other actors we'll be working with.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. It makes a change to hear somebody else asking the questions, and I've picked up some tips as well. The event that the interview was to publicise is the English Heritage History Live event, which is annually held at Kelmarsh Hall in Northamptonshire, and it's going to be showing from the 19th and 20th of July. The festival aims to portray as many aspects of British history, and it also has a hands-on family-friendly focus. Edna was the one who was doing the interviews there, in case you couldn't figure out if it's Harry or Edna. They will both be at the event, and they're going to be recreating a 1940s Victory Garden. It's got here in bracket a 1940s allotment at the festival. To find out more, it's www.english-heritage.org.uk/daysout/events/history-live. That will be put on facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show, along with the website for Global Adventures Challenges too. If you do pop along, you can share your photos of the event at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. You can hear more from Harry and Edna on Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock on seclosounds.org. That's it for the John Guinn Travel Show this week. I hope that you found the information useful and the change of interviewing entertaining. If you've been on a charity fundraiser, please do share your experience at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. I'd like to know what challenges you've completed, and if you'd like to share how much money you raised as well. No news this week. There has been some major news in the travel industry about the changes at the airports with security. But next week I was going to be talking about airport security and preparing for it anyway with my countdown to the school summer holidays. So I'll be talking about it then, and hopefully everything will have settled down and all the, which seems to be, well, I think rubbish is too strong a word, but some of the stuff coming out in the newspapers is probably a little bit wide off the mark and probably a little bit panicking as well. But anyway, next week, countdown to the school summer holiday, including airport security. And so I can help you. I hope you can join me next week on the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org, where each week I'll be checking it out before you check in.
Around the world, the trip
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.